This episode is brought to you by Rise of Kingdoms. This free-to-play, mobile, massively multiplayer online real-time strategy game has 11 civilizations, real historical characters, buildings, and military units. Some of the civilizations include China, Korea, Japan, Rome, Germany, Spain, Britain, and Ottoman. If you went back in history, what empire would you join? The Ottomans, Roman, British? I have chosen the mighty Roman Empire in this case, with its special Glory of the Empire power-up. Here, for the Roman faction, we have several legendary Roman commanders: Julius Caesar, Scipio Africanus, and Gaius Marius. Look what I can do here on this single giant map. You can see worldviews, individual cities, barbarians, and NPCs are all fighting on one map, no loading screens. Unlike other strategy games that make you go back to the home base before heading to another battle, in Rise of Kingdoms you can change directions and send different troops to anywhere you want at any time. I can send troops to fight barbarians, and I can change my direction of a unit while they are marching into battle at will. Build an alliance with your friends to fight enemies from all over the world, without any barriers when it comes to Rise of Kingdoms. Join us and 30 million other players in Rise of Kingdoms by clicking the link in the description below. Let's build our alliance and achieve glory and victory in battle. It's going to be fun. Hey, and stick around to the end of the video for some in-game bonuses. Now, let's learn about how you punished Roman soldiers that showed cowardice or insubordination to you as a commander. Why you wouldn't want to be the 10th Roman soldier. Decimation. Life in the Roman army was often brutal, even when not actively fighting bloodthirsty Carthaginians or rebellious gladiators. Military discipline was strict and punishments were often harsh. Soldiers caught breaking the rules could expect to face fines, flogging, or beatings, both of which were sometimes to the death. On rare occasions, however, entire units of hundreds of soldiers were subject to the most extreme penalty of all: decimation. The way in which the word decimation is used has changed over the centuries. In modern usage, it generally refers to an act of devastation or almost complete destruction. However, its Latin root word decem, meaning 10, gives a clue to its original meaning. When a Roman military unit such as a legion or cohort had committed a particularly serious offense, such as showing cowardice in the face of the enemy, its men were divided into equal groups. The soldiers were then ordered to draw lots by picking straws or picking the black stone out of a bag of white stones until 10% of the military unit had been selected. The unlucky chosen men were taken away and then beaten to death by their former comrades by stoning, clubbing, or stabbing. The remaining 9/10ths did not completely escape punishment, but were instead forced to camp away from the protection of the main encampment and to survive on barley usually only fed to animals rather than wheat rations for a period of time. It was believed that such a horrific punishment that did not discriminate between the innocent and the guilty would serve both as a corrective measure and a deterrent that would effectively keep the army as a whole in line. In the words of the Greek historian Polybius, who had first-hand experience of life on campaign with the Roman army, it was calculated to inspire fear and to correct the mischief. The earliest known examples of decimation can be found in the writings of Livy. He gives the year as 471 BC, a time when Rome was at war with the neighboring Volsci tribe. The forces of a Roman consul, Appius Claudius Sabinus Regilensis, failed to hold their battle lines, broke formation, and fled. In the ensuing chaos, the rear guard was routed, and both weapons and standards were abandoned. Appius had standard bearers, centurions, and any soldier without a weapon scourged and then beheaded. The remaining men were then decimated. Another famous instance of decimation occurred in 72 BC, when Rome and all of Italia were terrorized by a slave revolt led by Spartacus. The Senate awarded the command of several legions in Italia to Marcus Licinius Crassus, reputedly the richest man in Rome and certainly one of its most powerful. Crassus placed 2 of his legions under the command of the legate Mummius and gave him explicit orders not to directly engage with Spartacus's slave army. Mummius, however, disobeyed these orders, and his soldiers suffered yet another defeat at the hands of the slaves. Once again, some men fled the battle, discarding their weapons as they ran. Accounts vary as to what happened next. The bloodiest suggest that Crassus's decimation resulted in 1,000 men being put to death, but the most conservative claims that the number of casualties was substantially less, and that only 500 soldiers in total were decimated by their fellow soldiers. Decimation had not been used for many years until Crassus revived it, possibly because it would draw attention away from Spartacus. Despite their earlier defeat and the horrific punishment they received for it, the remainder of Crassus's force were able to rally and decisively put down the uprising. In fact, the Greek historian Appian commented that Crassus's use of decimation was an encouragement for the troops, as it taught them that they had more to fear from their commander than they did from the enemy. The Greek writer Plutarch claimed that Crassus's use of decimation resulted in many things horrible and dreadful to see, and that by carrying out such a sentence he was reviving an ancient mode of punishing the soldiers. However, there are relatively few extant examples of decimation found in ancient sources. It could have been effective in the short term, but in reality it resulted in a wasteful destruction of manpower and could easily have been counterproductive to the morale of the legions. Decimation started to carry a particular mystique as time wore on, and many ancient authors were fond of invoking it in their commentaries on Roman history. For example, Julius Caesar threatened his 9th Legion, Hispania, with decimation in 49 BC when they mutinied over pay and conditions. However, most historians agree that the decimation never actually took place. This hasn't stopped the myth of the decimation of the 9th Legion from being perpetuated ever since. In any case, Caesar was much more fond of mercy and clemency towards fellow Romans, and was an indulgent commander who rarely missed an opportunity to share the spoils of war with his loyal troops. The last known use of decimation by a Roman leader came in 363 AD, when the Emperor Julian was fighting in Persia. 3 units of cavalry scouts were ambushed, some troopers had fled, one commanding officer was slain, and a Roman standard was captured. Julian had 10 of the men who had run away executed in accord with the ancient laws. This example of a much reduced case of decimation is perhaps evidence of its infrequent use during the Roman Empire. It's also possible that Romans of Emperor Julian's time no longer fully understood the practice of decimation, or more likely, that while the emperor wished to make an example out of a handful of soldiers, he also kept in mind the ongoing campaign in Persia. The Romans kept alive the idea of decimation, as they did with so many arcane, half-forgotten aspects of religion, because they were so reluctant to do away with tradition. Rome's most ancient laws, the honoring of the gods, and their much-cherished traditions, were what Romans in public life held most dear.
See if you can do better as the Roman army in Rise of Kingdoms. While you can't decimate your troops, you can be in command and send them to victory in battle against other civilizations. Join us and 30 million other players in Rise of Kingdoms by clicking the link in the description below. And use this code to get 200 gems, 2 silver keys, 100,000 food, and 100,000 wood. The newest update brings loads of interesting content. Register your alliance in the Ark of Osiris, an exciting new Egyptian-themed battleground. And with the spectator mode, you can guess who will be the league champion. Play Rise of Kingdoms now and create your own history.